Making headlines this hour, President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu stresses that investing in the health of young people is essential to sustaining the Mauritius healthcare system and supporting the country's transition towards an aging population. According to a joint opinion article by the Ministry of Health, Family and Welfare and the United Nations Population Fund (UNFPA), the Mauritius is experiencing one of the fastest demographic shifts in its history, with declining birth rates and a rapidly aging population expected to reshape the country's social and economic future. The Minister of Education, Higher Education and Skills Development, Dr. Ismail Shafiu, calls on students across all grade levels to become more responsible for their own learning, warning that an over-reliance on tuition is harming both academic outcomes and student well-being.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to PSM News in English with me, Taham Naim. President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu stresses that investing in the health of young people is essential to sustaining the Mauritius healthcare system and supporting the country's transition towards an aging population.
In a message marking World Population Day, President Muizzu said that while the government remains focused on youth, it must also prepare for the need of an aging society. He said establishing lifelong healthy habits, preventing chronic diseases, and delaying the onset of age-related illnesses among today's youth would help create the productive workforce and caregivers needed to sustain healthcare systems and support older people. The president said investment in a structured care economy would ensure old persons receive quality healthcare and social support while reducing the unpaid care burden on families, particularly women. Strengthening care services, he said, would promote dignity, support workforce participation, and help build a more resilient, inclusive, and prosperous Maldives. President Muizzu said sustainable development depends not only on population size, but on the country's ability to empower its young people to realize their full potential. Noting that the Maldives is undergoing significant demographic change, he said this presents both opportunities and responsibilities. He highlighted the Maldives 2.0 digital transformation initiative, saying it is modernizing public services, accelerating digital infrastructure development, and helping to build a robust digital economy. With around 39% of the population made up of young people, he said investing in quality education and meaningful employment opportunities remains one of his administration's highest priorities. The president also said these development efforts must be supported by accurate and timely demographic data to ensure policies effectively meet the need of every citizen. The president also said that these development efforts must be supported by accurate and timely demographic data to ensure policies effectively meet the needs of every community. He said government administrative registers are being strengthened to provide accurate, real-time demographic information at the island level, improving evidence-based decision-making, reducing operational costs, and increasing state efficiency. President Muizzu said the Maldives is working towards conducting the 2030 population and housing census using a hybrid approach that combines administrative registers with traditional enumerations. He added that the effort is guided by a comprehensive roadmap and will be supported by legal reforms to ensure no person is left uncounted.
According to a joint opinion article by the Ministry of Health, Family and Welfare and the United Nations Population Fund (UNFPA), the Maldives is experiencing one of the fastest demographic shifts in its history, with declining birth rates and a rapidly aging population expected to reshape the country's social and economic future.
A joint opinion editorial co-authored by the Minister of Health, Family and Welfare, Gila Ali, and the UNFPA Maldives Country Director, published to mark World Population Day, noted that the country's median age has doubled over the past 3 decades, from 16 years in 1990 to around 33 years today. By the mid-2040s, the Maldives is projected to become an aging society. According to the ministry and UNFPA, declining fertility should not be viewed simply as a matter of people choosing to have fewer children. Instead, they argue that many young people are unable to have the number of children they want because of economic, social, and structural barriers. Citing the 2025 State of World Population Report, The Real Fertility Crisis, the op-ed states that a gap between the number of children people desire and the number they ultimately have reflects shortcomings in socio-economic systems and the need for policies that uphold reproductive rights and support family formation. The op-ed identifies several factors affecting young Maldivians' decision about starting families, including rise in living costs, limited economic security, challenges in balancing employment and personal life, and insufficient opportunities to establish independent households. It also highlights structural issues within the economy, noting that around 41% of the country's population now lives in the Greater Malay region, where living costs are significantly higher. Access to reproductive health services is also identified as an important factor influencing family planning decisions. The Ministry and UNFPA further pointed to youth unemployment and underemployment, stating that around 19% of young people in the Maldives are classified as NEET, meaning they are not in education, employment, or training. The article says this reflects a mismatch between labor market demands and the skills available among young people in an economy largely driven by tourism. Another major concern raised is the unequal distribution of unpaid care work, with women continuing to shoulder most caregiving and household responsibilities. According to the article, this limits women's participation in the formal workforce and affects their long-term financial security. With the country's elderly population expected to triple by 2045, the article argues that the Maldives must adopt long-term policies to strengthen social protection systems and prepare for increasing healthcare and care needs. It also notes that climate change and evolving lifestyles will add further pressure, making comprehensive planning essential. Among the proposed solution is the development of what the Ministry and UNFPA describes as smart care policies. The op-ed also calls for expanded parental leave policies and arrangements that encourage shared caregiving responsibilities between parents. In addition, the Ministry and UNFPA recommend closer alignment between technical and vocational education and training, TVET, and labor market needs. The article concludes that investing in young people is essential to ensuring the Maldives' long-term demographic resilience. It says young people are seeking not only access to services, but also the economic security and stability needed to build families and plan for the future. The Ministry of Health, Family and Welfare and UNFPA stated that they are committed to establishing efficient and robust care models tailored for Greater Malay area and rural island settings to ensure long-term demographic resilience. The op-ed ends with a call for collective action to create a Maldives that supports young people's aspirations while ensuring equal opportunities, care, and a sustainable future for generations to come.
The Minister of Education, Higher Education and Skills Development, Dr. Ismail Shafiu, calls on students across all grade levels to become more responsible for their own learning, warning that an over-reliance on a tuition is harming both academic outcomes and student well-being.
Speaking at the opening of the High Achievers Awards 2025 ceremony at CHSC Hall, Hulumale, the minister noted that many students now spend between 4 and 6 hours daily in private tuition, a trend that has become a habit in the country. He stressed that while external support can be beneficial, it should complement, not replace, school-based instruction. The minister highlighted the need to raise the quality of teaching so that the education provided in schools can be trusted to meet students' needs without depending heavily on after-school tutoring. He also pointed out that excessive tuition time combined with solitary study can adversely affect health, including mental health. Minister Ismail Shafiu further emphasized that fostering self-responsibility among learners from grade 11 to 12 would help them develop effective learning techniques and a lifelong enthusiasm for learning. Referencing the latest National Assessment of Learning Outcomes, he said that improved results are directly linked to students' interest and personal commitment. The High Achievers Awards 2025 will continue across 2 days, with 3 award sessions held today and 2 scheduled for tomorrow.
The Ministry of Finance and Public Enterprises officially begins preparations for the medium-term budget covering the 2027 to 2029 fiscal cycle, inviting all government agencies to submit their baseline budgets.
In a directive issued this week, the ministry outlined that the baseline budget should reflect anticipated expenditures for ongoing activities, projects, and services currently being carried out at existing level or scope. Notably, planned new activities, projects, additional services, materials, and budgets for new employees are not to be included in these submissions. The ministry has emphasized that submissions must adhere to strict budget ceilings and align with targets outlined in the published circular. All government agencies are required to complete and submit their baseline budgets before 2 p.m. on the 20th of August. The ministry has reminded that it reserves the right to prepare budgets for any agencies that fail to meet the deadline. The key objectives of the medium-term budget framework include ensuring fiscal and debt sustainability, promoting efficient public expenditures with measurable outcomes, improving the quality of basic and social services, prioritizing assistance for the most vulnerable members of society, and enhancing overall quality of life for citizens. Regarding personal costs, the ministry specified that employee expenditure should only cover ongoing and authorized positions as of the current month, with overtime and allowances budgeted at existing rates. Agencies have also been advised to plan cost-effective official trips and to avoid budgeting for annual meetings within individual departments, with essential meetings to be conducted in an economic manner. Additionally, the budget should only include funding for essential repairs and hardware necessary to maintain operational continuity and prevent service interruptions. Programs allocated to each office must be estimated separately.
According to the Ministry of Finance and Public Enterprises, the Maldives' financial standing has notably improved during the first 6 months of this year, with total state revenue and foreign grants reaching $1.45 billion by 2nd July.
The ministry's weekly fiscal development report revealed this fiscal performance stems from a surge in tax collections, particularly corporate income taxes and levies on goods and services. The report stated total revenue climbed by $136.19 million or 10.4% compared to the $1.32 billion collected during the 2025 period. Tax receipts constitute the largest share of this income, rising 13% to $1.12 billion from $992.22 million the previous year. Corporate income tax generated $110.25 million, marking a 6.2% increase from 2025, while taxes on goods and services yielded $622.57 million, an increase of $54.18 million or 9.6%. General levies generated $188.07 million, with the tourism sector contributing $428.02 million. State expenditures reached $1.52 billion, a 21.7% or $272.37 million rise from the $1.25 billion spent last year. Elevated spending on civil servant salaries and subsidies to stabilize essential costs drove this growth. Salaries and wages reached $239.95 million within a total of $518.81 million for personal costs. Recurring expenditures totaled $1.32 billion against capital spending of $194.55 million. The state recorded a primary surplus of $110.25 million. Ministry representatives observed a budget deficit of $63.29 million persists.
The Ministry of Health, Family and Welfare announces that the Maldives has been given the opportunity to serve as a member of the board of the Global Funds to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis and Malaria. The ministry said this role will enable the Maldives to play a greater part than ever before in shaping international health policy. In a post shared on social media, the ministry stated that the Maldives is representing the Southeast Asia constituency at the 55th board meeting of the Global Funds to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis and Malaria, currently being held in Geneva. The ministry described the appointment as a significant honor for the country. According to the ministry, the Maldives will use its position to promote health equity across the region, strengthen sustainable health systems, and reinforce efforts to combat HIV, TB, and malaria. The ministry also highlighted that while representing the Southeast Asia region, the Maldives is the world's first country to have successfully eliminated mother-to-child transmission of HIV, syphilis and hepatitis B. The achievement was officially recognized by the World Health Organization (WHO) in October last year. The Maldives has continued to achieve a number of internationally recognized milestones in the health sector. The 55th board meeting in Geneva was held on 9th and 10th July. The 56th board meeting is scheduled to take place in October. Minister of Islamic Affairs and Endowments Dr. Muhammad Shahim Ali Said says that the first International Forum on Islamic Civilization held in Uzbekistan provided an important opportunity for dialogue on the challenges facing the world today.
He made the remarks in an interview with an Uzbek media outlet. The minister noted that Uzbekistan is a land with a rich history of scholarship, wisdom and intellectual achievement. He added that both the Maldives and Uzbekistan are members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation (OIC) and share a common bond within the Islamic Ummah. During the interview, Dr. Shahim highlighted that many young people and tourists from Uzbekistan visit the Maldives for holidays. He described the Maldives as a country renowned worldwide for tourism and said that welcoming visitors is a source of great joy and pride for Maldivians. He further observed that Uzbekistan is blessed with natural beauty and a rich historical heritage, expressing confidence that the Maldives could support the further development of Uzbekistan's tourism sector. Dr. Shahim also said that Uzbekistan has set a positive example for the Islamic world. He praised the country's efforts to revive Islamic civilization and preserve its rich historical legacy, noting that the International Forum on Islamic Civilization had brought together scholars and intellectuals to discuss contemporary global challenges and exchange ideas.
Statistics published by the Maldives Inland Revenue Authority shows revenue collected from the airport development fee and departure tax during the first 6 months of the year has increased, representing a 17.5% rise when compared to the same period last year.
Two distinct levies are currently imposed on passengers departing internationally from Maldivian airports, the departure tax and the airport development fee. According to the tax authority, during the first half, these combined streams generated $136.19 million, a notable rise from the $116.73 million collected during the corresponding period in 2025. Collections for the departure tax reached $64.85 million, a 17% increase from the $58.82 million recorded during the same period last year. Revenue from the airport development fee totaled $64.85 million, an 18% increase from the $59.21 million collected during the equivalent time frame in 2025. The departure tax was implemented on 1st January 2022. The airport development fee, exacted from passengers departing internationally from Velana International Airport, has been collected since 1st May 2017. Specific demographics are granted exemptions from the departure tax, including those with diplomatic immunity, transit passengers, and children who have not reached the age of 2. Individuals with diplomatic immunity and direct transit passengers remain exempt from the airport development fee.
Apple files a lawsuit against OpenAI and 2 former employees alleging misappropriation of the iPhone maker's trade secrets to benefit the ChatGPT owners' foray into consumer hardware. The complaint, filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California, alleges a coordinated effort to steal Apple's confidential information, including product designs, manufacturing process, and supply chain strategies. The lawsuit is against former senior system electrical engineer of Apple, Chang Liu, and former vice president of product design for iPhone and Apple Watch, Tang Yutan, as well as OpenAI Foundation, OpenAI Group, PBC, and IO Products. It dramatically escalates tension between Apple and the ChatGPT maker that has been simmering for months. OpenAI did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. Apple alleged that Liu had failed to return a company-issued work laptop and later used an authentication bug to access Apple's internal network, downloading dozens of Apple's confidential hardware-related files. The company also claimed that Tan had been methodically using Apple's confidential information to benefit OpenAI by emailing himself information about Apple suppliers and internal industry summaries before his departure. A person familiar with the matter told Reuters in May that OpenAI was exploring legal options against Apple, including notifying the technology giant of a breach of contract but potentially not filing a full lawsuit. The tensions between the two tech companies have strained their relationship and shown how the race to develop AI products has intensified competition for talent and proprietary technology. In 2024, Apple announced integration of its Apple Intelligence technology across its apps, including Siri, and brought OpenAI's chatbot ChatGPT to its devices. Their partnership allows users to access ChatGPT results through Siri, while iPhone users can also sign up for ChatGPT membership directly from the iOS settings menu. OpenAI bought hardware startup IO Products, founded by former Apple designer Jony Ive, last year in a $6.5 billion deal, underscoring its push to move beyond software into consumer hardware. Ive is not named in the lawsuit. Last month, Apple rolled out a long-delayed overhaul of Siri. The update comes 2 years after Apple first promised major upgrades that were repeatedly delayed. President Donald Trump says that the United States and Iran had agreed to continue talks despite a recent escalation of hostilities, but he flatly declared that the ceasefire reached between the two sides last month was no longer in effect. Trump's comments came on a day of relative calm at the end of a week of renewed conflict, with 3 Qatari and Saudi commercial tankers came under fire, prompting the U.S. to hit Iranian sites and Iran to respond with strikes on U.S. military sites in Gulf states. No fresh attacks were reported on Friday, as regional mediators sought to salvage diplomatic efforts to permanently end a war that began on February 28 with U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. Iran's UN ambassador, Amir Saeed Iravani, speaking to reporters at the United Nations, said that the United States had violated international law and breached a memorandum of understanding with Iran by carrying out renewed attacks this week. The conflict is now in its 5th month, having killed thousands, throttled worldwide energy supplies, and raised a fear of a global economic downturn. Qatari negotiators were meeting officials in Iran on Friday to de-escalate tensions and discuss navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, a source with knowledge of the situation told Reuters. The sources said the Qatari talks aimed to address implementation of the US-Iran Memorandum of Understanding and disputes over navigation in the strait. Iravani said that under the Islamabad MOU, responsibility for marine navigation through the Strait of Hormuz rested exclusively with Iran.
The Secretary General report and today's briefing by Under Secretary General Mystikalo violated the Secretariat mandate. Any attempt to continue the implementation of Resolution 2231, whether by claiming to rely on the Note 507 established practice or any other procedural argument, is legally invalid. It is a blatant misuse of Security Council procedures and authority.
Daily tanker traffic through the waterway appeared to have slowed on Friday after attacks this week raised concerns about global oil supplies and shipping. Past talks have been announced with a few signs of concrete progress. Dujarric said diplomacy should continue, pointing to what he described as a lull in kinetic activity over the past 24 hours. Iravani said Iran remained committed to the Memorandum of Understanding if Washington complied with its obligations, but warned that Tehran would not remain bound by the deal if the United States continued what he called violations. Oil prices eased on Friday but remained on track for a weekly gains of 5% after the hostilities. US Treasuries edged lower on concerns that a trend of rising energy prices could add to inflationary pressures. The San Antonio Spurs signs Frenchman Victor Wembanyama to a multi-year contract extension. Financial details of the deal were not disclosed. Wembanyama became the youngest player to win the Defensive Player of the Year award this past season and helped guide the Spurs to the NBA Finals, where they lost to the New York Knicks in 5 games. The first overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft averaged a career highs of 25 points, 11.5 rebounds, and 3.1 assists in 64 regular season games. The 7'4" Frenchman also recorded a league-leading 3.08 blocks per game and 1.03 steals, becoming only the 7th player in NBA history to average at least 25 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks in a season. The Italian town of Piacenza unveils tribute to Giorgio Armani, a 27-meter high and 11-meter wide mural painted on the facade of a residential building on the city's outskirts on the eve of the late designer's birthday. Armani, who was born in Piacenza in 1934, would have turned 92 on July 11th. Created by urban artist Cote, the mural won a competition announced by Mayor Katia Tarasconi to honor the designer following his death on September 4, 2025. Half of Armani's face is clearly recognizable in the artwork, while the other half is composed of a mosaic of figures, including a seamstress bursting fabric with needles and thread. The background references the Trebbia River and the arches of Piacenza's Municipal Theatre, where Armani received an honorary degree in 2023. At the base, a group of women represents those whose lives and careers were shaped by Armani's designs. The mural was unveiled during a ceremony that has also featured a textile installation made from 71 reclaimed white cotton sheets created by the Art Viva ETS Association, which was lowered to reveal the artwork. That concludes news for now. Thank you for watching PSM News. Have a good day.